Well, welcome students to we don't know, we've lost count of our Sunday School Phone a Friend edition. Get your Bibles, get your notebooks out, and get ready to dive in. We've got a great lesson for you this morning. Our special guest this week is the one and only, the famous Mr. Warren Gasaway. He is the Church Health Assistant Team Leader, I'm going to see if I get this right, and the Student Ministry Specialist for the Arkansas Baptist Convention. Did I get it right, Warren?
Yeah. The longer the title, the more important you are. So yeah.
That's what I've heard. So you must be the most important. I mean, somebody just has like president next to their name. That's boring. You got it going on. No, but students, in all seriousness, all of those titles aside, what Warren is he is a pastor to guys like me. He takes care of us. He invests in us. He has shared more wisdom and given me more guidance than y'all will ever know. So I'm really grateful for his ministry and what he does for us. And he also is the reason you have Super Summer. So you especially should be grateful for him for that. I know many of y'all love Super Summer every year, and we're looking forward to next summer when all this is done and we'll be getting to go back. So Warren, thank you for joining us this morning.
Yeah, man, it's great to be here. Great to be back with your students, and great to be with you, my man.
That's right. You were with us this last year for Surge. You came. You were. I think it was just this last year. Yeah. So students, some of you may recognize him from there. Yeah. We're excited to keep this going. So students, this morning, Warren is going to talk to us about the importance of church. That's going to be our topic. And to be blunt, I'm excited because I think this is going to be a really interesting topic for us to try to cover in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of a time that we've all been separated and we've been told to shut down. And so I think this is a good time to have a conversation like this. So we're going to talk about the importance of church. And so Warren, just to kind of get us started, just to kick us off here, first question: what is the pandemic teaching us about the importance of church?
Yeah, I'm hoping that it's teaching us how much we need church and how much we miss church. I hope you guys and girls are thinking about those relationships that you're missing, being apart from the church, not only, within the youth ministry, but even within the overall church. Think about those names and those faces of people in your church that you are missing. And I hope that that's bringing about a hunger, to be back in church. I hope that you're missing the uniqueness of being with the people of God. That is something that is not found anywhere else on the planet. Think about church being that one gathering where people can come together. I hope you're missing the worship, absolutely. But I hope that you're missing the fun of laughing at that one crazy guy, and you're probably wanting to name his name right now, that one crazy dude in your youth group, and laughing at him. Hebrews 10:24-25 says that we should consider how we spur one another on towards love and towards good works, and not give up meeting together. In other words, not give up having church, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another. Even more as you see the day approaching, that day when Jesus approaches and comes back. So hopefully we're thinking about those things, the love that happens in church and the good works that happen and the inspiration to do those things. You're learning to do those things. In Waldron, Adam, kind of like Camden, a small town, western side of the state, we experienced times of really good growth, not because we had, the big lights and the smoke and the mirrors and the things of that nature. We experienced growth when people were really, really good at loving each other and encouraging each other to do good things. And so hopefully that's what we're learning. That's the important stuff.
Absolutely. I think the old cheesy saying is the absence makes the heart grow fonder, right?
Yeah.
Just kind kind of that idea. Absolutely. That there's this hope that it's helping you maybe realize what you had, maybe in some ways that you didn't know, in the daily routine of life. That's good. That's good. So you kind of mentioned this, Warren, but let's dive into it a little bit more specifically. Where does the idea of church come from? Like when we think about this word church, we've kind of gotten desensitized to it, growing up in maybe a Christian culture, but you don't really hear it anywhere else. Like where does this idea of church come from?
Yeah. Matter of fact, I hope maybe your students, after they watch this, their families, kind of dive in and take a look at the word church in Scripture and just see what all pops up in the New Testament from the church and what it was doing and who they were. But the word church comes from a Greek word, ekklesia, a great word to say when you're sneezing, ekklesia, something like that. But it's a translated word into church. But the root of that word is ek and kaleo, and ek means to be out of or out from, and kaleo is the word called. And so when you see the word ecclesia in the New Testament, it's this really interesting word of a called out group of people. It's an assembly, a gathering of this special group that's been called. And so that's where the word church comes from. And what that tells us, man, is that the church is a people. It's not a building. Often when we say go to church, we're thinking of a physical place, and really it's a group that's even meeting right now as we study through this together. And so that's where it came from. Jesus, if I'm not mistaken, Jesus first referenced the word church at a really, really important time. Matthew 16, he turns to his disciples, this young group of believers, and he says, "Hey, who do you guys say that I am?" And there was a lot of talk as to who Jesus may be, right, among the communities. But his disciples, and Peter especially, answered the question and said, "You are the Christ. You are the Son of the living God." And it's this first great declaration of who Jesus is. And what's interesting is that Jesus turns right around and he says, "Okay, on that faith, what you just said, I'm the Christ, the Son of the living God, on that is where I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it." So the church is built on this great declaration, confession of who Jesus is. And Jesus says, "I'm going to establish that." So not only is it this called out group of people, but even as you're meeting this morning and talking through these things, Sunday school, this is something that Jesus himself established and said, nothing will ever prevail against it. So, I think about groups of people that are special and unique. I don't know, Adam, if you're part of a different type of club. Um, I don't know. Maybe like a fitness club. Maybe you're part of a fitness club or something like that, or because I know you're a pretty ripped guy.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah, this would totally confirm that. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, yeah. As well as I am, and so, but the thing about clubs like that is that they are, if you really watch them, the church should look a little bit like what they do, because not in the sense of a bunch of sweaty people, yelling at each other, but
All
but
of that happens sometimes.
but all of these people coming together, for one goal, and they're encouraging each other, and they take care of each other, and they check on one another, and they don't get lost in the weeds. They have this one goal, and that's really what the church is supposed to be about. Jesus is the Christ. He's the Son of the living God.
Yeah, students, I think that is such a powerful, powerful reminder that Warren just pointed out, especially in the middle of this pandemic that can cause so much confusion and so much unrest, and a lot of questioning that look, Jesus has promised the gates of hell itself they're not gonna prevail. They're not gonna win. They're not gonna defeat the church. So are we in hard times? Yes. Are we having to respond in some unique ways? Absolutely. But the coronavirus is not going to be the end into the church. It's just not. Like God's word has promised that. So yeah, I think that's incredibly important. So let's kind of piggyback off of that, Warren, because I love that kind of idea of a club, of a group of people, that are taking care of each other, united around one goal. Next question here: Why come to church? Why come then? If it's not a building, if it's not necessarily a specific place, why should I come?
Yeah. So, I love what Hebrews 10 says about provoking one another to love, inspiring each other to love and to good works, and then that idea of encouragement that comes. So hopefully each one of us, even this morning, we're thinking about, you know, better ways to love, especially in the world that we live in right now, which needs a whole lot of love. And then the good works that the scriptures are talking about there. The church is actually the incubator, the birth of really good works that last for eternity. And so I think all of that happens in the church. It's supposed to. It shows us that we're not alone in our faith. It keeps us from being alone. Adam, the thing about being alone, maybe we felt a little bit of this in the pandemic, is being alone makes us vulnerable. None of us really like being alone. There are a few folks maybe that do, guys that go up and live in the mountains and are hermits and things like that. But by and large, being alone kind of feels weird, and we're not supposed to get used to it, because being alone makes us vulnerable, and it brings about weaknesses. You're prone to do things that you normally wouldn't do when you're alone. Um, you need that love and encouragement around you. A few days ago, there was a cardinal that built a nest right in a rose bush right outside my daughter's window. And this cardinal family here was building this nest, and we were literally 2 feet, inside the house, and we could watch the progress of the nest being built, and then eggs finally coming about, and the meticulous care that this little cardinal family was giving. It was spring, Adam, in all of its glory. Can you hear the little flutes playing right now? Yeah. And so one day, they're during the pandemic, we're all quarantined at the house, and I hear some yelling from that side of the house. And so I go over there, and the birds were just in an uproar. Okay. The little bird had broken from its egg that morning, and now the birds are really, really in an uproar. And I look down, my family's there. We're watching as this snake is weaving its way back and forth underneath the rose bush. And it's obviously looking for the new baby bird. And so we're watching this, and the daddy bird is on the ground trying to divert the attention. Mama's in the nest with the baby bird. And then this snake starts weaving its way up the rose bush. I mean, it's getting closer and closer, and dad's trying to engage it. And so finally, when it starts going horizontal across the rose bush towards the nest, my wife and daughter lovingly encouraged me to go out and intervene in this thing. And so I'm out there with a hoe, and I wish somebody would have, videoed this. I'm with a garden hoe. Yeah, I'm in the bush, trying to rake this snake out, and so my offensive lineman football player son is standing about 20 yards behind me, because it's a snake. And so I finally rake this thing out, and me and Daddy Cardinal, engage in this air to ground combat, on the head of this snake. And so it was just so funny watching it. It was like National Geographic, playing out in front of us here. But it kind of reminded me, those birds thought that they were alone, even though we were watching from the window. And when the evil came, or the destruction came, the enemy, and really got close, that's when, I engaged and tried to help out. And they really weren't alone. And all of us who are part of the church, I think that's the big thing. Why come? And we just want to know that someone is on our side, someone is for us. Even when we are most vulnerable, we have people that can come around us and provide strength and help us in the battles of life. So I think that's important, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and so students, I mean, I'll just personally kind of pause here and just say something I've tried to say before. Like, he is so right there, students, and we want to be that for you. Like, even in the middle of this, we still want to be connecting with you, and we still want to be spending time with you, because we know, students, look, I know that what Warren just described is happening to you. I know it is. You're feeling lonely. Many of you are feeling vulnerable. Some of you have come and talked to me about some of the stuff, but many of you haven't. And so I just want to lovingly remind you, like, we're still here. I know we haven't been able to meet together in our big gatherings, but I just want to pause here in the middle of this. Let's just remind you, like, we are still here. We still want to be the church together. We still want to be there for you in your corner. And so just do continue jumping in on our Sunday school. We're going to try to set up some different stuff this summer. I won't get into that too much right now, but students, we want to continue to know you, to engage with you, to be connecting with you during this time, because absolutely that is a huge part of what church is meant to be. So Warren, kind of pick up with that. Then our next question here: when is church really good? I mean, let's talk about some positive news, right? Like, when is
Yeah.
church really good?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the basis for that you can find in Acts chapter 2. And so not only Hebrews 10, but look at Acts 2 at some point today. In verse 41, you see the birth of the early church. Peter stands up, he preaches a gospel message. There are people in town for a Jewish festival called Pentecost. 3,000 or so are saved, and all of a sudden, brand new believers everywhere. And so if you look at that passage, it says that they accepted his message and they confessed Christ, they were baptized, and then they started devoting themselves. That word devoted, committed, loyal, devoting themselves to the apostles' teaching, to fellowship, to the breaking of bread, and to prayers. And so if you strip down everything, when church is really, really good, it's when there's teaching, truth, the knowledge of God being revealed from the scriptures. And man, how much do we need that in a cold, dark world that is full of so much noise and voice, where we need truth just to cut through. And then there's the fellowship. They were devoted to that. That's a word that kind of means partnership, sort of like business partners when you're together in the same cause, a joint participation, sharing something in common. It's that kind of partnership that they were experiencing. So they had the same mind and the same heart. And then there was the breaking of bread. I'm all for this one, man. I think this is great. Breaking of bread, breaking of meat, breaking of pie. I'm all about it. So bring it on.
Club a little bit better than that other club you were talking about earlier. I
Yeah,
like this one.
no doubt. And then what that means is that they shared life together because they were eating. And you know what that means when you eat meals together, you actually talk with one another and gain each other's perspective. So that's what was going on. And then prayer. And think about this, Adam. This early church, this new group of believers. Think about who was there and praying together. You had Mary, the mother of Jesus. We see that from Acts chapter 1. She was involved. We have Jesus's half brothers. Now they're involved. We have the disciples that had followed him. They're involved. And there was a great opportunity for there to be division in that group, for there to be, judgment and a bunch of casting, I don't know, anger towards one another because Mary was at the cross, but Peter denied. Thomas was a doubter until he saw the nail prints in the hand. I mean, he doubted. He said, I don't know that he's alive, resurrected. I won't believe until I see. And then you've got Jesus's half brothers in the room. They denied him for most of Jesus's life. And so when they get together, there should have been a lot of animosity, like a lot of casting glances at each other, like, where were you? Or why did you do this, etc. But that's not what happened. They set all of that aside and they came together and they prayed in one heart. And all of a sudden, the greatest movement known to mankind, the church, is birthed. And that's, man, when they did things like that, it was really good.
Yeah. Yeah. and students, that just so many things I want to say there, but it's his lesson, not mine. Y'all, look, that is why so much of what we try to emphasize to you is that church is not just an event you attend, right? Like this is not something we want you to just come show up together. It is meant to be this body of believers that we are united together under the banner of Christ. We have a mission, we have a goal, and it should help us set aside. Students, look, all of our petty differences, like all these things that we make such a big deal out of and that we think is worthy of dividing over, like they're just not in light of Jesus. They're just not. A lot of the gossiping and the he's popular, she does this, I'm in a different, like all of that kind of stuff, students, that we get so wrapped up in, like uniting under Jesus washes that away. Like it's supposed to remove that from our life. I'm gonna leave it at that before I start rambling. So Warren, final question here. Then what should I bring to church? If this is what church is, and it's not just supposed to be an event, what should I bring to it when I come to church?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for saying what you just did about some of the differences that we have that need to be cast aside. That was so good, man. If you go forward in Acts 2:42 through 47, you begin to see that the church was struck in awe as signs and wonders were beginning to happen, and they started giving. There was a great generous spirit that was happening, and they started worshiping together and figuring out how to worship. And it says in that passage that they had great joy and humility, and they experienced favor in the communities, and the Lord was adding to their number every day. And so here's the deal. No one wants to be in a lifeless church, Adam. Nobody. The hearts of me and you and men and women and boys and girls, we all are searching for life-giving activities, for life-giving people, life-giving ideas. We want that. And that happens when Jesus is the highest priority. It says in those scriptures that they had a great expectation. So bring that to church. They wanted to be in awe and have a sense of wonder as to who God is. Bring that. It says in this passage that they worshiped. In other words, Jesus became the highest priority, and nobody is worth worshiping but Jesus. We all have things that we worship. We're prone to worship because we're people. And so we set these things up in our lives that get our hearts and our attention. But man, church reminds us nothing is better than Jesus. And so we bring our worship and we bring our giving. It says that they were sharing all things in common. And so they were taking care of each other's needs. And we all have different types of needs. So have a generous spirit. Expectations, giving, worship. And then they had this joyous and humble spirit when they came. I think that all of us want our churches to be marked, to have the character of peace and love and excitement and unity and harmony and purpose. But listen, that only happens when we are those things. I can't wait for somebody else to be that for me. I've got to be peace and love and excitement and expectation and generosity and those things. I bring those things. And when we do, then we begin to see this spirit and this favor of God begin to happen. So I think that's the things that we're supposed to bring. We find it there in the early church in Acts 2.
Yeah. Yeah, and so students, what I hope you're picking up on here whenever we ask this question, should you bring your Bible to church? Yes. Should you bring your notebook to church? Yes, absolutely, you should. But when we're talking about this, what we're trying to emphasize to you here is that it's a lot more than just physical things, right? Like we're not talking about just bringing yourself. We're talking about the kind of attitude, right? The kind of spirit that you have, that you bring in with you when you come to church. Are you coming to church, with a sense of expectation that I have come here to meet with God, regardless of what this week is thrown at me, or have I come just for it to be another hangout? So I think it's incredibly important, y'all, for you to consider and for you to think about. Well, Warren, help us kind of transition here a little bit. What are maybe some follow-up questions or discussion thoughts that our students and our families could talk about at home as we sign off here, but as they continue to keep this conversation going?
Yeah, a couple of questions maybe you can ask one another is just very simply, what do you miss most about church? Just spend some time thinking through that. Hey, here's what's on my mind. Here's what I long for. And it's good to express that and to value those things. And then number two, I would ask, can you name a group of people that take really good care of each other? You know, maybe something that you experience outside of church where they really do a good job. I mentioned the fitness club earlier, but what do they do? And what can church do to take care of each other? And I would just encourage you to go back and read Hebrews 10:24 through 25 and Acts 2:42 through 47. Take a look at what the church is supposed to do. And then the last question that I have, and it's not really a question, it's a fill in the blank. You know, the church is at its best when blank. And you take some time as a family or just in your own heart filling in that blank, man. When is the church at its absolute best? And I would love to hear those answers.
Absolutely, absolutely. So students, just like every week, we'll have those questions also typed up in the description to this YouTube video here below. And I hope you are taking advantage of those every week, and discussing those with your families, or in some of the different small groups that we've got with some of the other students in our youth group. Well, Warren, thank you so much, man. Thank you so much just for joining us, for sharing your wisdom with us. To be blunt, y'all. I can think of no better topic for us to be talking about in the middle of our pandemic, and not to derail us in a whole other topic, but in light of the crazy, divisive, really hard things that we've been seeing going on in our country that's filling up our newsfeed right now. I can think of no more important topic than why is church important and what are we supposed to be? Students, we have a chance. We have an opportunity in the middle of this time and in the middle of these hardships just to be an example of the life of Christ. And we don't have to gather together in a building to live that out. We don't have to be one big youth group all in one room on Wednesday nights, to be able to be this example of Christ, to be the church. And so, Warren, once again, just thank you for encouraging us and challenging us with a really important topic during a really timely time. So
Yeah, man. Hey, great to be with you guys. And here, Adam and I are in the same kind of t-shirts, so we are kindred hearts, man. We
right,
look just alike. So
right.
yeah,
That's right. Well,
yeah,
students, we love you. We're here for you. Sarah and I are both here for you. If you need us, like I said, reach out, shoot us a text message, shoot us an email, find us on Facebook. If you can't find me that way, just call the church and they will track me down for you. So I love you. Prayerfully, we're hoping to see you in person soon. Bye.
yeah.